In today's video, I'm excited to show you how I made this American flag inspired star-shaped wreath. I made it for the 4th of July for all of my American viewers, and I'm so excited to show you all the steps and materials that I used to make this very simple and beautiful wreath. So grab all your stuff and let's get crafty.
This is Mary. Welcome to the IHC craft room. For materials, we'll begin with a 13.5-inch star wire wreath frame that I picked up at the Dollar Tree. 2.5-inch wired ribbon in blue and red and white stripes, and some small wood stars. For tools, we're going to need some parchment paper, a glue gun, some white acrylic paint, a paint palette, a paintbrush, and a pair of scissors. Let's start by giving these little wood stars a couple of coats of white paint. I ended up painting 8 stars in total, but you can add more or less depending on your taste. I thought 8 worked out really well. As always, a couple of thin coats of paint will get the job done. Let's skip ahead to work on the base of our wreath now. Full disclosure, I've never worked with a star wreath base before, and on top of that, I've never made a full ribbon wreath before either. So lots of firsts over here today. We're going to start by cutting up a few pieces of the red and white striped ribbon. I'm aiming for about 6-inch pieces so that when they're folded over, we'll see about a 3-inch piece. The truth is that dealing with the inside of this star is going to be a major pain, but you may already know this about me. One of my mottos in life is, when in doubt, add more glue. The overall plan here is simple. I'm going to keep overlapping pieces of ribbon so that we cover up the wire frame. Once we have the ribbon in the right spot, I'm going to add a line of glue to the frame and then secure the ribbon in place. And to keep this wreath looking sleek rather than messy, the key is going to be to make sure that your ribbon is folded over in half perfectly and that the ends line up to each other. That's the key to keeping this ribbon in line. For the peaks of the star, what I'm doing is making sure that the ribbon lays flat on one side, and then I add glue to that one side only and hold the ribbon taut with the ends perfectly lined up. And as soon as that glue has dried a tiny bit, I'll add a little bit more glue to the other half of the peak and then repeat the process of holding the ribbon taut and straight while covering that peak. I gotta say, dealing with these peaks is not the most fun you're ever gonna have, but in the end it wasn't that bad once I came up with this system. But I won't deny, I was happy to leave these peaks behind and move on to the next row. So let's do that, shall we? The center row of the star frame is much more straightforward since we're not dealing with any peaks here. All we're going to do is hook that ribbon over the wire, add a line of glue, and fold the ribbon over, pulling it taut and giving it a few seconds to start drying a tiny bit before we move on to the next piece. 1 piece per side works perfectly for this row. We're going to do that again. Add a line of glue, fold over the ribbon, pull it taut, and on to the next. At this point, I got a little tired of going row by row. I wanted more instant gratification. So I started working section by section rather than row by row. The outer row of the star requires 2 pieces of ribbon per side overlapping each other. But again, they are flat sides, so this is super simple after those inner star peaks from before. Not to be a broken record, but yeah, hook that ribbon over the outer row, add a line of glue, fold the ribbon over, pull it taut, and wait a few seconds. Then do the same thing, overlapping the last one. It won't take long to get to this part. How do we cover the gaps left behind? Don't worry. It's easy breezy. I'm sometimes sneezy. We can do this. We're going to need 3 pieces of ribbon for the corners. I'll place the first piece on the inner row of the star, adding a line of glue following along the point of the star, and then fold the ribbon over, pulling it taut and making sure the ribbon gets up into the point of the star so that it's really well defined. And I'm just going to keep smoothing it out as best I can and let it dry so that it stays in position. The second piece of ribbon we aren't going to fold in half. Instead, we'll only fold over a tiny bit of one side and then tuck it under what we just glued down. We're going to add a line of glue to the triangle tip of the star and then lay that ribbon down before we do the same thing with the third and final piece of ribbon, outlining that triangle with glue and completing this entire side. Let's do that one more time now that we have a plan. We'll add that piece of ribbon to the inner star, making sure to really pull and tuck the ribbon into the point of the star so that we get some good definition. The second piece of ribbon gets folded, not in half, but just tucked under so that we can use that part to glue it down to the triangle points of the star. And the third piece gets tucked underneath and glued down as well. That's 2 corners done. Let's move on to the blue section of our star. We're going to be doing the exact same thing with our blue ribbon as we did with the red and white. Cut your ribbon, dovetail the ends, and start folding pieces in half. Thread them over the star frame and start gluing them down, making sure to overlap so that the wreath frame doesn't peek out. That's really it. We'll just keep doing to the blue ribbon what we did to the red and white, and before you know it, the blue section will be done too. And just like that, we're one step away from completing this beautiful wreath. And that last step is to add our pretty little white stars onto the field of blue. And just like bow fluffing, arranging stars seems to be a task that I can truly make a meal out of. So let's skip ahead to gluing these little guys down, and then it'll be time for the reveal. Here we go. What do you think? Beautiful, isn't it? Happy 4th of July to all of my American viewers. Thank you for joining me on this red, white, and blue star-spangled, patriotic, star-shaped ribbon wreath making extravaganza. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe so that we can continue to get crafty together.